Two Vampirellas, basically around the same price. One is better than the other. Let's talk about what's good. Let's talk about what's bad. Let's talk about what I prefer. Let's do it. So in the last two videos, if you haven't seen them, this is literally a three-part saga. We opened the Loose Collector Executive Replica Vampirella. Then we opened the Frank Frazetta, the Frazetta Girls Vampirella. We talked about both of them. Well, here they both are. One is better than the other. That's inevitable. I'm not saying you can't like both of them. But, as we often do when we create countdowns and we talk about our favorite Spider-Mans or our favorite Black Series Star Wars figures, or we all have a favorite Ghostbuster and so on and so forth, guys, we tend to pick favorites. If you only had 90 bucks and you wanted to pick one of these, which one makes the most sense? Well, let's go over that. Let's talk about what works for each of them, what is bad about each of them, what is good, and I'll tell you which one I prefer. And with the information that I've given you, you can figure out which one you would have bought, or will buy for that matter, since both of these I think are very much available right now. Let's do it. So here they are, both Vampirellas. This is Frazetta Girls, this is Loose Collector. And let's just go over it. Both of these are taken from slightly different styles. This is a little more different on a comic book angle. This kind of plays off certain comic book art. This one plays off very much the Frank Frazetta cover art. Case in point, that is the Frank Frazetta cover art. As you can tell, that is what this is based from, right there. And this kind of follows more of some of the comic books that I've seen over the years, and that's what this is based from. Both of them have different aesthetics, but are the exact same characters. One could argue it's the same argument of which Spider-Man do you prefer? Do you want that Spider-Man, or do you want the pizza Spider-Man, or so on and so forth? Or are you the kind of person that very much believes that that is the best Spider-Man? All of these are arguable within taste, okay? But I have to go ahead and pick one of these. So let's go over some points. Right off the bat, we'll start with this one. So, this one does stand. It was an issue that I was wondering if I would have, so when we reviewed her, I put her on a stand right off the bat so that I could kind of get an idea. I like this hair, but it is the only option, okay? That could be considered a problem, although it's kind of wild that this hair very blatantly is one of those hair pieces that can come off so that we could change the head. If that was a thing, if we were going to be given different portraits for the face, then why weren't we given multiple hairs? This is always in action. She's never just standing there. There's always wind blowing. That could be a problem if you're trying to do certain kinds of photography. That being said, this one is taller, if I'm not mistaken. If that's important to you, well, they're roughly about the same height. It's a barely situation. She's the littlest bit taller, and that could very well be because of the way that she's standing. So height-wise, you're not going to have a problem here. You're just going to be picking one. So, in terms of the legs, this is one of her biggest features. She has the dual knee. This is going to allow for all kinds of posability and things like lifting knees and things like that, and certain kinds of kicks and stuff. That's important for certain people. For certain people, the posability is very important, and we've talked about this in the Cami video from Jada Toys, as well as in the last video. So both of these actually matter. Now, We're looking at higher boots on this one, so this is also an aesthetic question. The colors are a lot more vibrant on this one. This one is built to pop like a comic book, like an interior modern-day comic book page. She pops out. All of her colors are built like that. So that's a very, very bright red right here. These are bright golds. This is solid white. This is all things that work in her favor if that's the kind of aspect that you like. This right here is not painted on. It is actually a thing, so you're not going to have trouble in terms of the sculpt and whatnot. Heck, both of these even went out of their way to incorporate nipples into the actual sculpt. Yes, these are not children's toys. Let's get that one right off the bat, okay? You know what we're looking at here. On the back, we have an unsplit body sculpt. It is a full lower torso, which creates the butt and creates certain things like if you're wanting to get that knee like I was talking about, but this is as high as it goes, see? So you'd also have to kind of bend into it and get that lifting knee. If you wanted a pose like that, you'd have to create the pose. But as you can see, we can very blatantly create a type of falling type of thing right off the bat like this. It works, okay? She has the thigh swivel as well right here. So we can get different movements and whatnot that I actually think we're not necessarily going to land on the other one. Her hair, as I already mentioned, this is her face right here. And it's a good face. It works for what it's worth. I like it quite a bit. I think that it's very nice. I actually feel like the costume is way more skimpy than it even needs to be. And her body dimensions are very much created almost on a 90s comic book scale, okay? This doesn't necessarily... I understand there are people out there that look like this. I'm saying that this is not a normal looking body in terms of the breasts and things like that. This is what it is, okay? It is very blatantly exaggerated to the comic books. Seems a little too perky to me in some cases, but it works for what it's worth. And if this is what you're looking for, if you're looking for this level of cheesecake, then it will very much work for you. She does only have this level of bend in her arm, which one could argue is still better than the Frazetta bend. And that is pretty much what I have to say about her. I think that she is a very, very solid figure. I like her very much. I think that she just works, honestly. I do think that she's absolutely fantastic, and she's not leaving the shelf anytime soon. I like her a lot. Those are the ins and outs that I see, and some of the good things and bad things about her. She is also very pale. If you're into that in terms of your Vampirella, then this is probably where you're wanting to sit. Now, this one is, of course, the Frazetta Girls variant. Let's talk about her. The Frazetta Girls variant, right here, one thing that she's got is she's a darker complexion, okay? She's also working on a slightly different body, okay? As you can tell, she seems a little more, how do I put this? Oh, well, there she goes. She's more shapely to me, okay? She's more skinny, more cheesecake, where she's more, of course, Frazetta Girl, more shapely, more designed in a very specific way. And there's something about that that I do actually like quite a bit. I like this costume as opposed to this costume back here, okay? That costume back there, I like this costume more. I like the bigger collar here. I like that this is thicker and it comes down. I like the upper chest area more, if you want the truth of it. I like that it's a little more realistic. Naturals have a sag to them. They hang down a bit. They kind of go to the sides a bit because of the fabric. It's way more believable body sculpt than this one back here. This one plays more cheesecake. This one, I believe, is more realistic. This is all you're going to get out of this arm, okay? This is it. It's not going to get better. That's it. One could argue in some ways the face is better. But this is also argumentative. I think that the face being a little thicker actually really plays out for this and helps it quite a bit. I just think that it looks fantastic. I also think the darker complexion is kind of nice, but I do tend to like the lighter complexion in terms of certain characters. With her, I could go either way. I could do either one of these complexions and it really doesn't bother me. I like this deep red, this blood red, as opposed to this almost cartoony red. The gold is good on both of them, though the darker complexion kind of helps the gold, if I'm being perfectly honest. Kind of reminds me of a Conan the Barbarian type of Stygian gold, where the complexion really plays off the gold. I like her boots more, but I like her stability of boots more. These boots, they don't allow you movement. See, there's no thigh cut here, so she can't move, and her knees, she is limited. This is it. This is all you're doing. And we just argued getting those kind of poses where, like, okay, you cannot do a lifting knee. This is it. And the more you move the leg up, the more it creates this split here. Put your hair back on. So that's actually an issue all its own. If you want this type of, like I said, this type of flying down pose that we got, posing is more difficult with this than it is with her. Okay? So posability is lost a bit on this figure, and you really have to play around with it to get certain things. Like, if you want her to take kind of a pose where she kind of sits on the grave or something like that and kind of looks over, maybe puts a hand here and raises this one up with a bat or something. If you want this kind of a thing, right, you can get it, but you've really got to be careful and play around with how you get it. It's a lot easier to get a pose off the replicas one, because you can very much put this leg down, put this leg out, cross over, play off the hair, maybe move this hand down and this hand up, turn it, open it up, maybe even play off this one as a hip or something. There. Now see what I mean? How much easier it was to get her into that kind of a position. Both of them have flaws in their posability. I will not lie about anything like that. They both have flaws in their posability, but they both also have, I think she poses better. But if you're going for a very specific look, this one does hit different. Also, on the back, she has the full torso, but her legs work differently. So she can also get something like where she's kind of walking up onto this, and you kind of see that full figure right there. She could put one and put the hand down or something and kind of turn the head to kind of look back at you. This is a pose that is way easier on this figure than it is on that figure. So all of that plays out too. The ankles work really well for this, but they feel a bit loose also. So for as much as they work, they also play against you the littlest bit, because it didn't take me but an hour or so of having her on this stand that she started kind of leaning forward, and that is its own problem altogether. Otherwise, both of these are very solid, and both of them have pluses and minuses if you want the truth of it. Now, which one do I claim is the winner for me? So, who's the winner? Well, personally, I feel like you get a better value out of Frazetta Girls. You get this really cool base. It is really neat. It'll be very much something that I can use in like dioramas and so on and so forth. But some of the posing is going to be rough on the Frazetta Girl, and she simply doesn't move as well as the other. And Loose Collector has better posability. Flat out, easier posability. You will work a lot harder to get the same kind of shot with Frazetta Girl's Vampirella that you will with the Loose Collector Vampirella. Loose Collector feels a little taller. It's an optical illusion, but it's because of the way her body is designed. She feels a little taller. if I could only buy one of these, because this is tough. See, I like both of them. And I'm actually glad that I bought both of them because I'm seeing pluses and minuses on both of them. I think that realistically, when I do start getting some shots with them, I think certain shots are going to be easier with one over the other. Very blatantly. As I showed with things like looking over the shoulder and whatnot, that is the eggs and bacon here for this one. Absolutely. Frazetta Girls has got to beat hands down. And there are certain things about standing a certain way and with the posability for like holding out the hands and things like that. I think that Frazetta kind of has it beat. Not that Loose Collector doesn't have the hands, but it's not the same. There's something about the dynamic and the way just how many different hand gestures and stuff that you're allowed off Frazetta. But the posability is easier on the Loose Collector. If I'm to tell you that you can buy one, you get more value out of Frazetta. But if all you're interested in is the figure, and you want to pose, and you're not worried about other things, you're probably better off going with the Loose Collector. She's done very, very well. She's done in a very specific style, and I think that there are definitely things about the Frazetta that knocks her out of the water, but I like her legs better, even though one could argue I like the Frazetta Girls' legs a little bit better on the upper area, but that's a problem in its own right because I also don't, as I argued. She just fell over. That's another problem, though. As you just saw, Frazetta's more stable. I don't know if it's the fact that they built her a little bigger or what, because she's like wider in the hips and things like that, which really kind of help her, where she's really got problems in terms of like standing and whatnot. I'm constantly fighting with her and readjusting her feet and whatnot to get her to stay how I want her to be. Like, did I just get her? Did I got her standing again? No. There, I got her standing. But more than likely, she'll fall down before she's already fallen. Up there, she would have fell right there. If it wouldn't have been for the gravestone that just saved her from falling over, she would have fell again. I'm noticing that's a real problem. I do think, though, there are plenty of stands and whatnot that you'll be able to do that'll make her stand up and do what you want her to do, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. But I do think, depending on your argument, if you're looking for posability, you want the Loose Collector. But if you're looking for something that is more visually stunning, I mean, she looks like the cover art, you definitely want the Frazetta Girls. For me, I'm leaning a little more in terms of what I'll be able to get out of the figures right now towards Loose Collector. But that is very subject to change. I was interested in doing this video because I wanted in real time to kind of figure out where I'm leaning one way or another. And while there are definitely things that I don't like about her, I feel like I'm going to get more use out of Loose Collector than I will out of the Frazetta Girl. But that may change. When I do set up the graveyard and I get a couple of shots, I'm going to do a series of shots with each of them. And that's going to be my determining area as to which one I enjoyed working with more. I don't know when I'm going to do this, but it will be fairly soon. I have another figure to open to get a couple more gravestone things so that I could set the first base of what I'm trying to do. And once I have that set, I'm kind of going to build a mild little gravestone area, like a little graveyard area, and I'm going to get some shots, some simple shots. But I'm gonna work with both of these models, and I'm gonna figure out which one I like more at that point. So it is subject to change, but for right now, first impressions, handling the characters, this feels like a better action figure than the Frazetta Girls. But there are things I like immensely more about the Frazetta Girls than Loose Collector. I kind of wish that this would have been the costume they would have went with for this one. I feel like they cheesecaked as hard as they could and got as much skin on this one as they could possibly be allowed getting without literally just giving you a naked body. And I know what they were after, and I have seen her look like this in the comic books. That's the reason I say I think this one is way more based on some comic art from people, where that one is way more, it's very blatantly based on the actual Frazetta painting, which makes sense because that's from Frazetta. So each of these fills a different idea. And like I said before in the last video, you're talking about artistic interpretation here. And depending on what the artist was going for, what the sculptor wanted, depends on the kind of figure that you got. So these are both two very different era-defining Vampirellas. One could argue the same idea is taking one Spider-Man over the other Spider-Man that's wearing the same costume, but mild differences. This Spider-Man has slightly bigger eyes. This Spider-Man, the webs are a little closer together. This Spider-Man has a darker blue. Sometimes you feel like those don't matter and you're going for all posability and who's the absolute best one. Well, let's test a couple of poses and there we go. But sometimes you'll give up part of that posability to have the body figure that you specifically want for the kind of shot that you're going after or the era of figure that you care about. Let's say people read comic books very specifically in this era. This is the one they're interested in. Let's say the only reason you care about the figure at all is because you like the artwork. And most of the artwork in terms of cover art is heavily inspired by the original cover that then birthed a lot of covers that are kind of in that style. It set a standard for how Vampirella would look on the covers. Well, that's this one. I've given you all the information that I can on both figures comparatively. I've told you the one that I'm kind of leaning towards right now, and I've told you that that's subject to change, and it's very possible. But these are my thoughts on the Vampirellas. Now it's on you. Which one would you buy? Or which one did you buy? I'm gonna get out of here.
I have spoken. Take what you will from it.